So Lost Build 6 is now here, boys, and Morgan has been released as the premium 5-star servant with Banner 1, and she may not be the caster we wanted, but she is the berserker that Buster needed. I know I've been talking for a while now about how Buster's kind of falling behind, because it's really hard to make a Buster servant that loops that's not too good. Because if a Buster servant is capable of looping their NP, quote-unquote, then you really have no use of using the arts or quick servants, because then they just become stronger arts and quick servants. But I think the way they went about building Morgan is very, very powerful. So if you enjoy FGO content, I upload these videos every single day, and all I ask for in return is a like on the video and a subscribe to the channel. If you're feeling super feisty, you can click that join button and become a channel member. But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about Morgan. Now, her hits are actually pretty good. She's rocking 3-on-2 busters, 3-on-2 arts, 4-on-1 quick, and 5 on the extra, which you already know if she's got 5 hits on the extra attack, she's already going to be pretty good. I will say that, like, looking at her kit and some of her skills, they're going to really exemplify the power of her hits, and especially those 2 arts cards, because you're really going to be relying on her getting like some arts crits or something to actually gen a lot of NP and for her to be able to loop. But then it's also nice that they didn't sack her ability to Buster Brave Chain by giving her like 3 arts cards or like 2 quick cards or something like that. So her deck is really fine, but nobody really cares about that. You guys want to know what she can do with her skills. So skill 1 is actually a charisma. It's giving the entire party 20% attack and charging her own NP by 30%, and then applying defense down to all enemies by 30% for 3 turns. And this is all on a 6-turn cooldown. So usually charismas are on a 5-turn cooldown, but her charisma is really, really broken, because again, she's giving everybody, including herself, 20% attack, giving herself 30% battery, and then lowering all enemies' defense by 30%, meaning she's getting a lot of damage from this one skill, because again, buffing her own attack and lowering the enemy's defense means she's going to get extra mileage out of that attack buff, and then she's also, again, charging her NP by 30%, and spoiler alert, she does have another battery, so she's already off to a very, very powerful start with this skill. And I will say that I do like that they split her battery, because that allows you to get the most mileage out of her NP, and it's going to allow you to use her on multiple turns, and that is probably the best way to go about building a Buster servant and helping them loop their NP, which is the one thing they really have an issue with. So again, already off to a very solid start. Her second skill is a targetable 20% NP charge, and then it gives the entire party 25% NP gain for 3 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. So this is kind of like Castoria's second skill, where you're able to give somebody 20% NP, and then you give everybody in the party 25% NP gain. And so this is not only going to help Morgan loop her NP by making her arts cards a bit stronger by buffing her NP gain, but then this is also going to allow her to have a total of 50% NP that she can give to herself or split and give to somebody else. So this is good and say harder content, because I know I've been in those scenarios where I'm about to get blasted by an NP, or my Castoria, my Scotty, my Waver, just somebody that's going to protect me is down on their NP and they just need that little extra bit. So in harder content, the fact that she can actually give this to somebody is very, very helpful and does actually give her a lot of utility. And then again, the fact that she's buffing the entire party's NP gain, even if you're using her with just like double Merlin or something, it's going to help those Merlins get their NPs faster, and it's going to mean more stars for her to play around with, more big crit damage, and just going to let her function very well as a Buster Berserker. Now, speaking of crit damage, let's look at her third skill, because this is her method of survivability. She's getting a Guts that lasts for 3 turns, and is reviving her with 3k HP, so it's a pretty decent Guts, although do keep in mind she's a Berserker, so if she revived with 1 or 3000 HP doesn't really matter. But she's also massively buffing her star weight by 5000%. Again, she does kind of need that massive star weight because she is a Berserker and her natural star weight is super low. She's also giving herself 30% crit damage, which is really low, but do keep in mind she is a Buster servant, so you're going to be pairing her with Merlin, who's going to be giving her massive crit damage and master Buster buff. So I guess they're a little lenient on that, and I'll take them only giving her 30% crit damage, but giving her like 50% battery and like that crazy first skill with that charisma. So I'll take that trade-off, and I'm just happy that she got any crit damage at all whatsoever. But then we're not done here. She also has an effect that triggers when her Guts is activated. She lowers all enemies' attack by 20%, which is going to help her survivability. I'm assuming the reason they have that trigger is because she is a berserker, and having only 3,000 HP really doesn't matter. Again, 1 or 3,000, she's still probably going to die in one hit. So lowering their attack by 20% might allow her to live a hit. So I kind of understand what they're going for there. And then as a little cherry on top, the skill also does drop 15 stars. That's not contingent on the guts activating. She just drops it at the beginning. So she drops like 15 stars and then activates the star weight and the crit damage. So hopefully you can kind of get some crits going to kind of start her kit up. But overall, her skills are very solid. Like skill 1, extremely powerful as a charisma. It's boosting her damage and the entire party's damage. She's getting herself going with 30% battery. Lowering all enemies' defense means that she's going to get more mileage out of that attack buff. And then if she's a secondary DPS, or you have another servant that is like a support but also does damage, like say Caskill or something, they're going to get a lot out of that as well. Second skill is basically Castoria's second skill, which is very, very solid. And then this third skill is giving her some survivability and giving her a nice base for being a crit damage berserker. But then finally there's her NP, which has 6 hits, so if you buff the star gen with say Merlin's second skill, you might actually be able to drop a decent amount of stars. Nothing crazy, but a decent amount of stars. It's giving herself a special damage modifier of 50%, and then she's getting a massive 300 to 500% extra damage depending on overcharge if she's fighting a human. Now, that is not humanoid, do not misunderstand that. You might think like, oh, that's really good because she gets a lot of damage against servants. No, servants have the humanoid trait. They do not have the human trait. Characters that have the human trait are like the soldiers you fight, like say Roman soldiers, French soldiers, the little like executioner ladies from Agartha, like those type of people, like actual normal humans. So that is why that damage modifier is so high, because you don't really fight humans, just normal humans, all that often. But when you do, she's gonna absolutely destroy them. Now, she also applies Curse on all enemies for 5 turns, so she has some synergy with Ashia Doman and Van Gogh, so that's kind of cool if you want to use them. And then interestingly, she's applying Overcharge to all members of the party for 1 time for 3 turns. So if you have her paired with someone like Merlin on his first NP is going to drop more stars. If you ever paired with Castoria is going to give her an extra hit of Solemn Defense. If she uses her NP again within those 3 turns, she's going to get extra damage against humans. So it is kind of nice, right? It is a nice little niche effect that she has, but overall, you're going to be using her to just trash everything in the game because she's a very, very solid AoE berserker, right? She's really, really strong. Now, is she as strong as, like, say, Arjuna Alter? Upon my, like, initial look at the servant, no, not really. Like, Arjuna Alter is still going to be the king of doing damage, but I do think Morgan is going to have a place at that AoE berserker table. You know, you have Raiko, who's kind of like the king of, or I guess the queen, the queen of dropping stars and then being able to do some big crit damage following that, as well as having some pretty nice damage niches. Arjuna Alter, who just blows everything up and is known for his massive amounts of damage. And then you'll have Morgan, who can kind of do a little bit of both. She doesn't do as much crit damage as Raiko, and she doesn't just do Gafugel's amount of damage like Arjuna Alter, but she has a big battery. Like, she has 50% battery total, and she has some team utility, and I think she's going to be known for that. And for that reason, I do think she is worth a summon. She is really, really good. I'm personally going to be summoning for her on JP. The overall value of the banner is pretty good as well. The Tristan and the Gawain that are on the banner as well are pretty solid. So if you're worried about like, oh man, what if I don't pull Morgan, but I get some of the side servants, they're also pretty good. Don't worry about it. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think about Morgan down in the comments down below. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.